Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Hours. I'm really pumped up about what we're going to be talking about today. We've got some great questions, some great interaction in our coaching community over the past 2 weeks, really, as everyone's ramping up for their season. I can tell there's a lot of renewed commitment and interest and energy as many parts of the country have started practice this week. Some are starting next week. And so, as always, we're here to help. We're going to dive into the 131. But as always, I want to kick off with celebrations and gratitude. And if you're one of the coaches that is jumping on live this morning, I would invite you just in the chat box, drop your name in and share something that you're grateful for or someone in your life that you would like to celebrate. Just the practice of expressing gratitude for others, even if they don't hear it, which I would encourage you to text them as well, even if they don't hear it, is healing and energizing for us as well. So I see that we've got Coach Carlos in the chat, and welcome. First off, actually, I'm going to celebrate you, Coach Carlos. It was wonderful texting with you this week, and so thankful that you are investing in your program with Savvy and choosing to invest with us, and just your leadership of your program. Every time I talk with you, I learn. So I celebrate everything you're doing there, Carlos, in your program. And this week, I also want to celebrate another coach that's actually in our commit program right now. I've been doing weekly one on one coaching with him, I and other members of the team. And John is coming out of, and I celebrate John specifically for this, having a clear lens to see what's actually working and changing if something isn't working. John's coming from running an offensive system, and he's implementing lock left and throwing race and space into transition. And he's coming from running an offensive system that makes a lot of sense as a coach, but he hasn't seen his players really able to implement all aspects or many aspects of this system. And John, I'm celebrating you from our conversation yesterday, where you identified certain things that you've been working on for a period of years and seasons that your players haven't been able to apply well or execute well in actual games. And we were working on tweaking, okay, what are some more simple 11-second actions that we can put in that you can actually transfer and apply. So, John, I celebrate you for being willing to look square in the eye at something. It's like, hey, this has not worked, so we need to change it. And so that's my celebration today. Katie, hello. Great to see you on live. Your husband, Lance, he is awesome with leadership and culture. And Katie, I know that we're due to connect as well. So give me a text. Would love to just jump on with you one on one and hear what you've got going on as you're taking over a program for the first time down there in Louisiana. Okay, let's dive in. 131. We're starting off with one big principle. Here this month, we're attempting to help you get more traction by aligning your offensive and defensive principles, systems, practice planning, feedback, everything. The more you can align your offense and defense and master what we call the opposite game. I think I did that wrong. I'm not sure how you're seeing it. This is the A and the V of Savvy, or this is the A and V. I'm not sure which way you're seeing it. But that's why the A and the V are like that. That's why we have the logo built this way. Is basketball is a game of opposites. And the more we can embrace this opposite game principle, shout out to my friend Edward LeBlanc, who first used that language with me 10 years ago. The more we can master the game of opposites, the more we'll see our players, our teams improve faster. So here is specifically what I mean by mastering the opposite game. I would encourage every one of you as coaches to clearly define in a simple one sentence what is the objective of your offense. And I encourage you all to start with offense first. And then, if once you define that objective, then define the opposite objective for your defense. And everything that you teach and everything that you do ties back to that. So, for example, for me, I would say the focus, the outcome, the win for our offense is getting our shots. If we can define our shots as nines first and sevens second, which will actually be coming a little bit later in my feedback to you, Coach Carr, of some video that you submitted. We'll get to that at the end. If we can define nines first and sevens second is the offensive outcome, well, then the defensive outcome would be the opposite. We take away nines first. We don't give uncontested or open layups at the rim. So that means we're really, really good in transition. We don't give breakaways. That means we don't give right hand drives, which result in nines. It means we don't give right hand layups, which result in higher percentage of nines. There's nothing open at the rim. That means that defensively, every drive that we force is going to be a pass. We don't let someone drive in and shoot it. We force them to drive in and pass it so we can go hunt the pass. And then every catch on defense is a dribble. We don't let them catch and shoot sevens. We force every catch to be a dribble. So if every drive is a pass and every catch is a dribble, we are playing the opposite game because on offense, we want nines. And if we don't get nines, we're getting sevens second. Opposite, opposite, opposite. When we can do that at the highest level, and then filter it down to every other level and layer of our teaching, we have embraced the opposite game. Whatever we want to get is also what we want to take away. Jana, welcome to the call. Celebrating day 4 of tryouts and implementing both systems. Jana, I look forward to hearing how that's going for you. Feel free to shoot me a text or a message. Would love a little insight into that. As always, ask any questions live as we go. I will address them as we go and tie it into all of our questions at the end. So, how else can we embrace the opposite game? Well, if we take it a layer down, and if we know, again, offense, nines first, sevens second, defense, take away nines first and take away sevens second. If we know that that is our opposite game biggest principle, or tweak it and define it as you see fit, you need to use that language with your team daily and multiple times per day. In every drill that you do, in every game that you do, that's what you're teaching first. And everything you're doing in your skill development is teaching them how. How can we get more nines? How can we bolt faster? How can we break down the defense? How can we use our strides and fakes to get the defense out of position to create a nine for ourselves? How can we then use protection plans to actually be patient and make not just passes to open players, but passes to dangerous players so that it's actually a seven? How do we read that if it's not a seven, we click the ball, we move the ball quickly on a 2 out to hunt the advantage? If they take away our seven, we're hunting a nine again. How can we use everything to tie back to our main opposite game? Okay, here's a couple more things that we're going to talk about as far as opposite games. Align your pre-game and your pre-practice, right? So this would be another thing. So whatever it is that you determine is going to achieve your offensive and defensive opposite games, then you need to do that pre-practice every day. And I would encourage you to consider in your pre-game doing everything the same as you do in your pre-practice. So the first 20 minutes of your team corporate practice should look nearly identical to your pre-game. And that gets us into the 3 of our 1-3-1 structure is 3 specific and actionable ways in order to improve and get more traction out of your pregame and to continue to align your offensive and defensive systems in your pregame. So here is where I would suggest you start, tweak as you see fit. If we're going off of this, we want to get nines and sevens and we want to take away nines and sevens, then the 3 things that you should incorporate into your pregame would be this. 1, core temperature and use the magic. So here's what I mean by this. We want every player to have their core temperature up and to have broken a sweat in our pregame so that our starters, we know that the non-starters are going to cool off, but so that our starters are game ready and come out without having to try to raise their core temperature again, without having to try to get into the feel or flow. Magic. What do I mean by magic? Well, the basketball is magic. NBA skills coach Aubrey Baker, who I've worked with in the past, says that the ball has magic. Like when you touch the basketball, it energizes you. And so I really believe that the first 4 to 5 minutes of your pregame, you want to have every player touching the ball as much as they can. So one thing that we do, a lot of our savvy practices, is we do bones ball handling, where every player has a basketball. They're working on their starts and stops. They're working on movements. They're breaking a sweat. They're getting their core temperature up, and everyone's dribbling and touching the basketball to get some feel. I would suggest doing that as the first couple minutes of your pregame because it's what we do in the first couple minutes of our practice. We're working on our dribbles, we're working on our starts and stops, we're working on our pickups and protection plans. The ball has magic, it creates energy, and it gets our core temperature up. And it aligns with our system of this is how we actually get nines, is we have to be able to be great ball handlers and hunt with the dribble. And if we don't have a nine, we have to have a protection plan to be able to then kick out for sevens. So that's what I would suggest first. Core temperature up, get everyone touching the basketball as much as you can, whatever you decide to do, and do the same thing that you're doing in the first couple of minutes of your practice. Number two, do a prime or a reset drill or drills. So whatever you're doing to prime your environment and hold your standards in practice, or if you call it a reset, where it's like if we don't hit the standard, we reset the clock to zero. We have to hold the standard for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. You can increase that as you go through your season. Do the same thing to create the environment in your pregame warmups. So two that we use a lot are action shooting and close and wall. And action shooting would just be we do it off two sides of the floor. Let's say we're doing action shooting off of zooms. All right, well, we're going to do it with names, knees, and noise as we're zooming out, hunting, kicking for shots. We're going to get shots out of our actions, or maybe we're doing ghosts, or maybe we're doing step ups, or maybe we're doing step ups on one side and flanks on the other side. Whatever, it doesn't matter what action we're running. We're preparing for our 11-second action menu that we can use in the game, but the goal is to do it with names, knees, and noise, or whatever your standards are. For us, simplicity, energy, and communication. Simplicity wins. We'll hold the standard. And even in pregame, I would hold the standard. We would prime our environment by saying, we're doing this for 2 minutes at our standard, or else we'll reset it. We'll do as long as it takes. So that would be action shooting. The other one that we like to do a lot, again, it's the opposite game. If actions and hunts get us nines first and sevens second, then I want to practice the opposite, taking away nines first and sevens second. So on the opposite, I would do something defensively like close and wall. Close and wall, it's in our drill book, but again, it's making sure that at all times we're locking the ball left, and at all times we have someone on the wall that will not allow a nine at the rim and force a pass for us to close and wall again. It's our 4-on-2 close and wall drill that unlocks when the ball gets to the other side of the floor. So we actually are getting some game-like reads and shots as well. But the goal is, because we're going to have players in lines and players waiting on the baseline, that there are plenty of people to bring energy and hold our standard of communication, hustle, etc. And we're doing it every day in practice to prime ourselves to compete. We're doing it in pregame to prime ourselves to compete. This is coming out of Coach Adam Herrera's question of what would you do in pregame, and so I want to give you some specific ones. Taylor, welcome. Really excited to have you on here live. Names, knees, and noise would be how we define our standard of energy and communication, meaning that we're getting two names called every minute. So that would be the measurable. And a name might be like, Taylor, great hustle. Katie, remember to get to the back of this line. So just we're saying two names. Knees mean that we're never walking. When you walk, your knees don't get up. When you trot, your knees get up. So knees are up, not knees down. And noise. If you're waiting in line, you're bringing noise. The simplest way is clapping. Another way can be like, great shot, or boom, or let's go, or like just some sort of celebration. Names, knees, and noise is a standard that we hold at Savvy, and we reset the drill if we don't have names, knees, and noise. If I don't hear names, if I don't see knees, and if we don't feel the noise and the energy, we're resetting it and starting over. We have to do that for X amount. All right, thanks, Taylor. Appreciate it. And thank you for asking. Taylor, if I was speaking too fast or unclear, other people didn't get it as well. All right, last. Third thing, remember we're on our 1-3-1. Third thing to incorporate into a pregame so you can get away from useless two-line layups, um, which is not practicing nines, because you're gonna make, well, you're probably gonna make your wide open breakaway 45-degree slow motion layups. That's not what we need to practice getting or making. We need to practice hunting more nines. So be able to break people down off the dribble, being able to use our stride series to use our body to create openings at the backboard and rim, to be able to use protection plans when we don't. We need to find ways to create more nines, not how to make the obvious 2 to 3 breakaways we're going to get per game. Okay, third thing, shots for shooters. Shots for shooters. This again goes into our opposite game principle, nines first and sevens second. If we can't get a nine, we need to be able to take and make more sevens. Who needs to be able to make your sevens? Your shooters. So if you have got your primary shooter that's going to take 10 threes per game or 10 shots per game, they need to get the most shots in your pregame, especially if they're a starter. Guess who doesn't need to get 10 shots? The player at the end of the bench that plays on the porch that never shoots sevens. They don't need to get the same amount of shots. So a shooting drill in your pregame that's one shot and rotate and equal opportunity is not actually preparing you to be successful. Shots for shooters. And so what I would suggest is I would do it out of attack training, shooter's choice. So we would have our shooting ladder, and this is another reason to do a shooting ladder, is the number one person on the shooting ladder gets to go first on one side of the floor, and your number two person on the shooting ladder gets to go first on the other side of the floor. And they get shooter's choice. So they decide, where do I get most of my shots in games? You can help them with this. And so let's say that shooter one likes to shoot from the left corner. They're going shooter's choice, hunt and kicks, left corner threes. So, the other 5 players or 4 players are up the attack spot, hunting, kicking, rebounding, getting it back, and your number one shooter's just knocking down, getting in a rhythm, shooter's choice from whatever spot on the floor, whatever action, whatever type of shot that they want to. Let's say your number 2 shooter is a dragon, so they're on the right side of the floor and they're going back to like the center circle, and everyone else has got a line, like the 45. And they're hunting, protection plan, kicking back to the dragon who's dragging into shots. And they're just shooting on shooter's choice. How long do they get to shoot? Until they feel good. Until they feel good. They'll obviously have an awareness of other people want to get shots, but like these are our shooters that are getting 10 and 8 shots per game. We need them feeling good. So as soon as they feel good, maybe they feel good after 3, 4, 5 makes, maybe they feel good after 60, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, I don't know. As soon as they feel good, then they sub out for the next shooter who's third on the shooting ladder. Let's say person third on the shooting ladder, they really like to blast up out of the corner to the 45 on unlocks, and that's how they want to shoot. Maybe there's someone that likes to shoot off of ghost action. So you go to your third and your fourth shooter. In pregame, if you do this for about 6 minutes, you're going to get 1 to 2 minutes per shooter. You're going to get through on 2 sides of the floor. You're going to get through your top 6, 8 shooters, which is all you need to get through because that's all you have as green light shooters anyway. Everyone else, if you want to shoot in pregame, go get better and move up the shooting ladder. But shots for shooters out of their shooter's choice action would be something else that I would incorporate into our pregame. And then to finish up, you decide. I'm going out of our 3 here. You decide if you want to give them, because players love to show off their fancy jelly lays or whatever, if you got some dunkers and you're allowed to dunk or whatever, if they want their last 2 minutes as 2-line layups, knowing that it's not making us better, it's just fun where everyone gets to make a shot in front of the fans, go ahead and do that. I prefer to go into a more of a live situation. I prefer to go into flow game, like a 4-on-2 or 4-on-3 advantage flow game. So we're actually making decisions. That's what I prefer to go into for the last couple minutes of our pregame. But that's where I think you can throw a bone to the team that really loves to do 2-line layups, so they can show off for their fans in the stands. Okay, that's what I would do for pregame. 3 actionable ways to continue to align your offense and defensive system, align with your principles, even in your pregame and your pre-practice. Last thing I'll say about aligning your systems in your pregame and pre-practice. The more you can use that 20 minutes of pregame as a practice, the better you'll get throughout the season. And the more you can do the same thing that you do in your pregame, in your pre-practice, the more you're going to get higher energy and performance as you use that pre-practice as prime time to compete and juice yourself up to get focused and create energy in your gym. We want to associate that pre-game energy with pre-practice energy. And it's a great teaching tool. It's like, hey, remember our game on Friday? Raise your hand if that gym was lit. Raise your hand if you were pumped up. Okay. Raise your hand if our environment today in practice on Monday morning doesn't have the same energy. Okay. Well, the goal of our pre-practice is to generate the same energy we have as pre-game, and we won't move on until we do. Reset the clock to zero. Let's prime this thing, or let's energize this thing, or whatever words that you're using. It will allow you to associate those two times, pre-game and pre-practice, to align energy so that you practice with the same energy that you compete with, which is the goal. And that's why we want to align those two things in what you do, and more importantly, how you do it. All right, let's go to the last 131. Awesome. Let me read what Taylor's sharing here. It was totally his guys last year. Didn't do two-line layups, and then they asked me after a couple games if they could do it. Exactly. I love it, Taylor. Um, it's a give and take relationship. Like, why try to change 12 people if a small change in yourself can help everybody get aligned? So I think there's absolutely a place for that give and take, Taylor. And then Taylor, okay, you did some flow game in pre-practice, and you did like how that got the temperature, the body temperature up too. All right, really appreciate that feedback, Taylor. Excellent. All right, 131, the final one. So remember, our 131 structure is this. It's the structure of our weekly hours as we kind of go as a cohort, as a group of Grow community members through different focus areas of becoming a better coach, growing as a coach. We always do one, savvy principle. Today was the opposite game. Three, actionable ways to implement what we're focusing on for a given month. This month it's aligning. So we're aligning our offensive and defensive system. Today we talked about 3 ways to align your pre-practice and your pre-game. One, a new teaching tool for you to attempt to use and apply. And let me actually mark this clip here. Coaching is sales. And throughout my career of being in both business and coaching, I've had the opportunity to learn a lot about sales. And there's a certain sales method that's called the story brand method. Many of you might be familiar with it. And the story brand method is essentially this: it's a way to convert people, not by sharing the product, but by sharing a story. And all the best stories follow the same arc. And the arc, simplified for you as a coach, is this: problem, solution, benefit. Most stories have an obstacle, a problem, a challenge, an enemy, right? Problem. And then at some point, the hero finds the solution. And at the end, you win, and there's a benefit to the individual or the community or the world at large or whatever. Problem, solution, benefit. That's also sales. If you want to sell something, which coaches are salespeople, we are selling our team, we're selling our assistants, we're selling our stakeholders in the community, the administration and the parents, we're selling all the time. And the best coaches are the best salespeople, especially as you get up to the higher levels. Like, you got to sell someone to recruit them. And at the pro level, you have to sell these high achieving individuals that are often as smart or smarter than you in your field of expertise. You have to sell them that your system is going to actually work. It's sales. Coaching is sales. And so if you want to sell your team better on anything, giving more effort, using names, needs, and noise, doing less two-line layups in pregame, I encourage you to use this problem, solution, benefit model when introducing an idea, when asking them to change, when proposing a new 11-second action, whatever. So let me give you 3 examples of how a coach, as a teaching tool, could use this problem, solution, benefit model. One, let's say that you are trying to help someone with their shot. Okay? Problem, you have no power. You can't shoot from the 3-point line. Problem, you don't shoot as well from the 3-point line as you do from 15 feet. That's a problem. Would you like to be able to make threes? Okay, then here's the solution. You need to load your wrist and load the ball tighter to your body. Let me grab this basketball for us real quick. So if you've been around Savvy at all, then you are going to be somewhat familiar with this, but it bears repeating. Nearly every player that I work with that has a power problem, they generate more power first just by loading better. So young players especially tend to load the ball far away from their body. And a quick way to identify this as a problem is to have your player hold the ball with their arms fully extended at shoulder height and just say, okay, hold it strong and don't let me push it down. And then you just put your hand on the top of the ball and you push it down very, very easily. Then you say, okay, I want you to pull that ball tight to your body, let your elbows go back, and put it right at your belly button to hold it strong. And then you push it down, and they're much stronger. And so you say, okay, your problem is you're loading the ball too far from your body where you're weak, and so you aren't lifting it with enough power. So load it tighter to your body. Then the next one is just going to be like this. Okay, now with any sort of, imagine your wrist is a rubber band. Okay, and imagine your wrist is a rubber band, and if you don't pull back or load the rubber band, how much power are you going to have? None. Now imagine your wrist is a rubber band, and now load the rubber band. Pull back the tension on the rubber band and let it go. You get more power when you load the wrist, okay? Well, the problem is most young players and poor shooters in general, they don't load their wrist. Their wrist is flat, and they don't load their wrist until late, and they don't load it enough. Whereas we're going to get the best and most wrist load early. And so our load position is ball tight to body and load wrist. It's why we get our hands big on the basketball so that our lift hand can help pull our wrist into a loaded position. Load tight in here. So your problem is you don't have power. The solution is to load the ball tight to your body and load your wrist. And the benefit you're going to feel, because if it's good, it's going to work within 2 minutes. If it's good form in shooting, it's going to work within 2 minutes. If they can't see the benefit within 2 minutes, then it's actually not good. And I had a new player last night in my gym where we did this exact problem solution benefit. And she was like, oh, I felt it. It took her 2 minutes. She's like, I feel it. I feel it. And it didn't mean she was making all her shots, but she's like, oh my gosh, it's so much easier to get the ball to the rim. That I need this, right? She saw the benefit immediately within 2 to 3 minutes, and it clicked. And now her shot's gonna be changed forever. It's gonna take time for her to work on it, but it was a sales job. Especially with shooting, it's a sales job. Problem, solution, benefit. Okay, here's another example of problem, solution, benefit. Set that ball down. Okay, problem. We don't score as well against a set defense. Again, I was working with John last night, and he said that his team is not a good shooting team, and at their level, their opponents just pack it in the paint in some sort of a zone or like super sagging pack line defense, and they don't even guard his team at the 3-point line because his team can't shoot threes. and and I'm like, okay, that's a problem. Well, he or anyone that's recognizing the problem that all teams have is that it's harder to score against a defense that is set. We just identify as a problem. Hey, we can't score against a set defense, right? The solution is we have to race more and play in transition more. And the solution is we got to find a way to play faster and get behind the defense even sooner so that we can shoot before they're set, so that we can hunt before the defense is set. That's our solution. And the benefit is we're going to have a lot more fun and score a lot more points if we can do it. Like, what do you like? Do you like playing in transition better, or do you like playing against set defense better? Everyone's like, oh, I like this better. Well, that's the benefit. So when we're conditioning, when we're playing so fast that you're exhausted, when we're asking you to bolt every single time and not get the ball every single time, when we're asking you to be your own outlet, when we're asking you to do all these things, it's because of the problem, and it is the solution, and it's for this benefit. So instead of just saying we're going to bolt, you have to be a salesperson. Okay, last problem. And I use this in games to be a salesperson for our lock left defense in games. Um, and I find that actually in games is one of the best times to teach. Okay, let me zoom out here of this teaching tool and give a warning. And it's a warning that I experienced myself. And the more that I'm coaching these club teams, because my daughters are coming up, the more I'm thankful for it, because allows me to attempt to be self-aware and realize what my tendencies are, because I'm competitive like all of you, and recognizing that sometimes these competitive tendencies actually make me a less effective teacher and a less effective coach. So here's a warning. Mark this one as well. Here's a coaching warning. Beware of becoming a spectator. So often, I don't teach players what they need to be taught on the bench or as they sub out, or even during dead ball situations, because I'm afraid I might miss something that's going on in the game, which doesn't matter. I don't need to see us make a shot for the shot to go in. I don't need to see us guard and lock left on defense to see it working. Sometimes I don't coach my assistants, and I don't coach players coming off the floor, and I don't sit and teach players on the bench and prepare them to be successful when they go on the floor, because I need to see everything going on in the game. And that's a miss. I've either done the work in practice, or I've done the work and taught the player, uh, and I just need, or I haven't. And what's going to happen on the floor is what's going to happen on the floor, whether I'm perceiving it or not, whether I'm commentating on it or not. And this became acutely aware to me at the last tournament that we were at, as I was on the sideline waiting for our game, and there was a coach. I'll call it coaching. There was a coach coaching the game on the sideline, and he wasn't coaching the game. He was a play-by-play commentator, and I think we've all been in this situation before. He said, "Oh yeah, good shot, good shot. Ooh, way to run to the corner. Way, we'll go past it." It was just he was just commentating on what was actually happening, and as I was listening to it, I was just like laughing internally. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds so ineffective and foolish," and I know that I've been that person as well. And so I would encourage you to beware of being a play-by-play commentator. Instead, understand that you can be teaching all the time and preparing players to be more successful when they're on the court, during dead ball situations, when they sub off, or before they actually go in. So one specific problem solution benefit that I use to improve our lock left, which is actually best during games, is every time that there's a right hand drive that often results in good things, made layups, fouls on us, wide open kick out threes because we have to overhelp from the wrong side of the floor where we're not loaded up in help, right? I'll just turn to the bench and be like, was that a right or left hand drive? Right hand drive. What happened? Bad things for us, right? Problem, right? Then we call a timeout. Hey, every time they drive right, what happens? Bad things for us. Every time we put them left, what happens? Good things for us. Okay. All right. So what's the solution? We've got to make them drive left. All right. And then like the benefits, like every time that we make them drive left and force a turnover, or force a bad shot, or whatever. All right. I'll just during a dead ball, or to the players on the bench, say, what happened there? Ah, man, they drove left and good things. That's the benefit of when you get out there making sure they drive left. So again, it's just problem, solution, benefit. Problem, bad things happen for us when they drive right. Solution, make them drive left. Benefit, good things happen for us. We get turnovers and we get to play in transition and have some fun again. So the problem, solution, benefit teaching tool, both in practice and in games, will allow you to further align your offensive and defensive systems, further align everyone to your opposite game, and allow you to hopefully convince your team and your stakeholders and your assistant coaches of the solution that you're providing, because that's all you were doing as a coach, is providing them a solution. All right, let's flow into questions and feedback. And let me take a look at our chat here. I think we have one question I can answer first before I go into the emailed in questions and the video, as we'll be doing a video breakdown on four different videos today. All right, Jana, how soon in the season would you introduce reads, or like Saba, which Saba being small advantage, big advantage, or I'd say the title of it, the principle would be advantage game, like playing the advantage game. Um, so let me answer it this way, Jana. Right away and always. Now, right away means everything has, if you have everything in your pocket as far as teaching tools, then there's going to be a time to provide them the solution. And I think that looking at any system, they'll take the race and space. I think that looking at the race and space as 10 separate layers would be the incorrect way to teach it to your team. I think looking at the race and space as 10 separate layers is the correct way to learn it yourself as a coach. And I think I have not done a good job of articulating that in the course. And I appreciate you raising it because I'm going to fix that. Let me repeat it. Looking at the 10 layers is the way to learn it as a coach because it's the priority. It's like learn this so that you have it as a tool to teach to your team. And when you feel like you've learned layer one, learn layer two. But as far as teaching it to your team, everything is taught at all times. You just decide how much depth you're going to go into. So let me apply this to the advantage game, what you are correctly referring to as SABA, which is an acronym which stands for small advantage and big advantage. So we're teaching advantage game when we're teaching nines first and sevens second, because a nine is a big advantage at the rim. A seven is a big advantage at the 3 point line. Defense far away from us with a good shooter. So we're teaching it. Now, we're also teaching small advantage. If no nine, meaning you have a small advantage at the rim, you've got to do more work to get a nine. Maybe it's a fake. Maybe it's a stride finish to create space contact or pivots, right? Or maybe you can't turn the small advantage into a big advantage. And so you've got to give that small advantage out to the catch. On the catch, maybe we have a small advantage on the catch. And that means go hunt a nine again. You don't have a seven. So we're always teaching Saba. Now, as far as like repping out those reads and really focusing in on those reads and teaching them like, okay, what do you do as far as like what reads you're allowed to make when you have a small advantage? Or what do you do when you have a big advantage on the 3 point line, but you're not a green light shooter, right? That would be more depth of teaching. And how soon would you go into that into the season? When they understand the difference between nines, sevens, and fives. That's when I'd start to go into more depth. Like when at the rim, they're not shooting fives, they're only shooting nines. When on the catch, they're not shooting fives, they're only shooting sevens. When they have that down, that's when I'd go into the next level of reads for small advantage, big advantage. Um, so I would say it is not critical prior to game one. Your team is ready when your team is ready. Um, I think prior to game one, all they need to know is what's a nine, what's a seven, how do we get it in transition, do we have an 11-second game on offense? I think that's it prior to game one. For defense, prior to game one, know your defensive roles and know how to lock the ball left and know how to build a wall from 2 passes away. I think that's it prior to game one. If you can defensive role, get matched up at your defensive roles, know how to play on the ball and know how to play on the wall, I think you're good to go for game one with those things. All right, let's dive into a couple of more, actually, not a couple of more, let's dive into film. So, the first piece of film that we're actually going to take a look at here is going to be film from Kevin. And Kevin wanted feedback on his teaching, specifically of teaching flow game. And so I've got some celebrations and some ideas for Kevin on this. And I don't think Kevin's able to be on live today. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing with audio on, but I will allow it to play in the background and scroll as I highlight some things that he did as well as some opportunities. Okay, so I'm going to keep it there. So, first thing that I want to highlight that he did well. Kevin, you did a great job of saying we and teaching your objectives and principles. So Kevin said, we are trying to get sevens and nines in our 7 second game. He said, we do that by having these roles. So right now he's organizing his lines by roles. So he's getting his rackers in a line, he's getting his locks in a line, and he's got a dragger. Okay, he's going 4-on-2 advantage game. All right, so you did a great job of that. Kevin, you also did a great job, and I'll do one more celebration before I give some feedback. You also did a great job of questioning first once we got into the actual game. So he shared the objective, and then they got into their play here. All right. Got into the play here. And right after he played, he stopped. And on his first stop right here, they generated a really good seven on the possession. And he stopped and he actually asked, Kevin, you actually asked the entire group of ladies in line, you said, was that a seven? And everyone said, yep, that was a seven. He's like, that's what we want. Let's go. Like, you did a great job of not just saying that's what we want, but asking them to, like, check for understanding, but also get them engaged. Really good job on that. Okay, good. We can give one more celebration actually first. Um, we took one, I want to say it was in the corner here. They took a five in the corner. It was highly contested. It wasn't off a good pass. It was rushed. Um, and you did a really good job of saying, okay, that's an example of a five, which, Jana, going back to your question, would be an example of teaching Saba even initially when we talk about we're racing for nines first and sevens second. So really good job of identifying, okay, nope, that's a five. That's not what we're actually trying to get in this situation. Okay, here's some feedback. So Kevin actually also had 7 seconds on the clock. The clock didn't start until the ball hit the Rackers' hands, and they only had 7 seconds to get a shot off. So really working 7 second game. So now here's some feedback. Kevin, I think you could have been more clear. This is a great example of it right here. Let me play this at a little bit slower speed. Beautiful. Kevin, you could have been more clear, and I think all coaches could be more clear with the priority. It's not just, and I think what I heard you say, Kevin, was sevens and nines. It's not just sevens and nines. It's nines first. This is the five. It's nines first and sevens second. Because what we saw here the very first time they were doing it, as you see Kevin teaching fives, is they were willing to take the first seven without enthusiastically hunting a nine first. And so the feedback would be like, no, 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 we want a nine first, and we'll settle for a 7 second. And so how do we actually do that? What are some teaching points that you can use, Kevin, that we can all use to actually do that? First, rackers. Even when playing with advantage, rackers need to beat one and really enthusiastically try to get to the rack. Otherwise, they're not a racker. So rackers never let one player stop you. So here's a great example of it right here. Racker didn't even try to hunt. This defender's not even really guarding her or contesting her. We didn't force help from the second defender, which is what's going to be the decision maker of I don't have a nine. I actually forced help, so I don't have a nine. But because I forced help, that means there is a seven open somewhere. And I would even further suggest that a seven comes after a hunt, after a world hunt, or what's traditionally called a paint touch. After a paint touch is likely going to be a seven. It might not be on the first pass, it might be on a two out. But this is just a pass, right? To what I also wouldn't call a seven. Because I wouldn't call it a seven because look at the pass. The pass is not a strike. Sevens come after strike passes. And because it's not a strike, we're getting a contest. I would also not call this a seven. This is a five. So why didn't we get a seven? Well, gosh, we have 4 more seconds that we could have used for the racker to actually try to get a nine hunt first to draw some sort of help, or to draw some help and get a burn cut, which leads me to point number two. The way that we actually hunt nines first and sevens second is the goal of our race is to get behind the defense. The goal of the race is to get behind the defense. So if at any point any player gets behind the defense, they burn to the rim. So we're bolting out and racing up the floor to our lock spots, to your porch spots, even to your dragon spot. Because if we can ever get behind the defense, we're burning to the rim. Well, how do we actually help get behind the defense? Well, we have to try to lift this help defender up into help. So this racker needs to hunt, which would lift this player up into help, which would open up a burn from the corner or a burn from this porch spot right here, right? But because we don't even get patient, we have 5.5 seconds left. The racker got off the ball too quick. Because we don't hunt, use our protection plans, use our pivots, we don't even get a chance to use up the second defender and open ourselves up for a burn cut, right? So now we're just clicking the ball around without ever actually having hunted a nine. Racker's got to beat one. Others have to try to get behind the defense and make burns to the rim. And lastly, off of our attacks, I think we try to get two outs. So here's a great example of this. On this five catch right here, right? On this five catch, here's our other defender now. On this five catch, this is off of a one out pass. Let's back it up. We'll see it here. Okay. That's a one out pass. If our racker did hunt a little bit further, here's our other defender, number 24. One out passes often result in fives. Ideally, our racker's gone, and ideally, our dragon's actually dragging down because we want our dragon to drag behind the ball at all times. They want to drag behind penetration by the racker, but they also want to drag behind any kick to the corner. They want to always be open and available. So our dragon ideally should have drug down here to the 45. This is a one out. We'll generously call it an out because we didn't actually get inside the world or inside the paint. But let's say this is a one out, okay? Well, we want this to turn into a two out. Our racker would actually be here and exiting, right? And our dragon's working on pulling down to be available and behind the ball at all times. Our dragons are dragging because they're a good shooter, right? We want 1, 2 out to the dragon right here. That two out would have turned this 5 into a 7, and we got plenty of time for it. Racker hunts further. If you're ever behind the D, you should be burning. And on any hunt, we want to get two outs. If we do those things, we're going to be more successful hunting nines first and sevens second. So, Kevin, I think those would be additional points of emphasis for you as you continue to develop your 7 second game, and obviously using flow game here for your 7 second game. All right, let's check back with our chat box here and see if there's any questions on that. Okay, Jana, do you still say that jail is free throw line extended down to the corner? Yes. Left sideline, free throw line extended to corner is jail. We want to get the ball to the left sideline and then down into jail and keep it there as much as possible. That's the outcome that we want. And the reason that we're trying to put the ball to jail is because it doesn't allow for nines and sevens. We keep it on one side of the floor. We can overload, build a wall so they can't get nines. And once we keep it in jail, there's going to be no passes for sevens because there's no penetration, there's no rotation, and no passes for sevens. So yes, Jana, that is correct. Okay, let's take a look. Coach West in Tennessee. This is actually his. He was in the middle of his middle school season right now, and just starting his high school season here shortly, and wanted a couple of feedback on these lock left clips. So let's give it now. Let me mark this so I can pull it out for Jonathan as well. All right, feedback on some lock left clips. Let's check it out. Let me get the cursor off the screen here. So initially, all right, so the wolf gets there and the ball's already on the right-hand side of the floor. All right, not bad. We really like how this is great hunting from their lock or their picking up the closest pass to the right of the ball as the ball handler's looking at it and not allowing it to pass up the floor right. All right, they've got their racker here sprinting to the gap. All right, now the only thing that I would say on our wolf here is too open and too tight. So right here, you see how open the wolf stance is? And the fact that this ball handler is able to get downhill so easily lets me know that the wolf is too tight. We want to be further from the ball as the ball is further from the rim and as the ball is further on the right-hand side of the floor. So I would actually have our wolf probably backed up one more step and have them with the ball on the right-hand side, have them keeping this more squared up stance as the ball's on the right-hand side of the floor. Sitting nose to right shoulder so we can't give a right-hand drive, but forcing this east-west left-hand dribble as opposed to a north-south left-hand dribble. Second, this is their racker who's in the gap right now. So this positioning, she needs to be helping across and not up. All right. So across means right now, if she's matched with this player, I would have her sitting right here at the nail in a stance, ready to be across whereas she's a little bit up. She's above her player, so she doesn't have vision of her, right? So that's one thing I do there. So on this, the next thing, as soon as this player picks up the basketball, and the reason that our gap defender here is going to be late on the recovery is because they weren't in the gap to begin with. She's moving into position, and so she's off balance. So she's going to be late on this close, right? So all of those things play together. Two open on the wolf, not in position yet, and being up the line, and not recovering fast enough. So ideally, she would already be in this nail position. She's not there yet. She'd be in this nail position, in a stance, ready to sprint. And as soon as this ball's picked up, right now, her momentum would be leaning and moving here as opposed to leaning and moving there. And because we're so late on all of this, we give up what I call a 7. I don't know if it went in or not, but it doesn't, it might be a 5. She got to the ball a little bit. One more thing. Every catch should be a dribble. So this would just be teaching. In this scenario, it doesn't matter whose player it is, and there's no rule for X outs. The only rule is every catch has got to be a dribble, and it's all of our responsibility. And so this player right here, if we know that every catch has to be a dribble, this player right here is probably closer. And on this penetration, this player right here should have been shrinking the floor and building a wall. And so there's a good chance that this player probably could have forced a dribble here better than this player. And in that point, it would just be another one of our scram switches. She'd say scram, and she's running back there. That would be higher level. Everything else, I think, can actually be cleaned up earlier. All right, here we are again. Nice switch on the screen action to wall off the paint, give no nines, great stuff. Now we get another little exchange, and we miss our switch. So this little exchange as well should immediately be a switch. We got the ball to jail, want to keep it to jail, so that on-ball defender should immediately be jumping up high and behind to this position to keep it in jail. We want to try to squeeze the ball whenever we can. Otherwise, we give up a right-hand dribble, which allows us to get the ball back to the right-hand side of the floor as well. Right-hand dribble, right-hand side of the floor. Now, hunting passes. This player that's matched up here is a little too attached to their player and not as aggressive on the ball as I would like her to be. I would like her, even from this position, when she's on the wall, she's looking to hunt passes. So she's locked in on the ball. We can see that as soon as that second hand gets to the ball, we're sprinting and anticipating where their eyes are looking. It doesn't matter where this player is. It matters that the eyes are looking here. So I would love her to be sprinting and trying to steal this pass. Instead, we kind of sprint to the player, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But even as she goes to the player, we're giving up a right-hand dribble right away. So I think that's where we can hunt to pass a little bit. Way to get her back left and way to build a wall. I love that. We get her back left, we force some sort of a pass, hunt passes, and we get a deflection. That's great. Okay, broken play, they get a bucket, no big deal. All right, so again, as a wolf, too open and too close. All right, too open and too close. If you're going to get crossed and beat here, you're too close, and it forces you to be way too open. As the ball comes towards you to the right, the on-ball defender, the wolf, needs to actually drop and give space back to the right. That's going to also get the ball left, but you're not going to overplay and get crossed up so much and opened up, right? Pretty good skirmish and pretty good recovery. Pretty good skirmish and pretty good recovery. We missed the opportunity to lock this and hunt this pass aggressively, so we let the ball back to the right a little bit. That's better stance. That's better stance. We get caught up on the screen. I would default to all screens being switches. Good job putting the ball left, and great job running her into the wall. That's exactly what we want from anywhere on the floor. Every catch is a dribble, and every dribble is a pass. Like we're gonna build a wall right there. You see, we have two defenders. We force really bad spacing for our opponent. Excellent job. So hopefully those little teaching points, Jonathan, can help you out as well. Yes, your goal, Jana. Get me some film breakdown. Would love to break it down, practice or game. 2-minute clips or shorter are great. We can usually get plenty, as you can see, out of 2-minute clips or shorter. Okay, we were talking about skirmishes there and being able to skirmish and get back faster. So the last film breakdown I'm going to actually give is from Coach Kevin, where they're doing a 2-on-2 breakdown around skirmishing. And this would be a great drill to do in the middle of a quarter of the practice. So let's say that your objective for 1/4 of your practice is going to be able to skirmish better from the gap. Again, the gap is any one pass away to the left of the ball. Obviously, our racker tends to start in the gap in our matchup, but this is a good little breakdown drill that Kevin is doing from a small advantage, right? So the offensive player has a small advantage. We're shoulder to shoulder in this. And what the defense is working on is skirmishing and reading. As soon as that small advantage goes away, right? As soon as that defender is able to get back to a place where the defender's shoulders are in front of the offensive shoulders on the race to the rim, that's a signal to go away. As soon as a second hand comes to the ball, that's a signal to go away. Those are our shots. If we can force a little pull up there in the middle, I love it. So again, starting with an advantage situation, starting in the gap, skirmish and back. Keep that ball out of the paint. The on-ball defender is 1 now. We've kept the ball out of the paint. That's not a 9. If we can keep the ball out of the paint, and even more specifically out of the charge circle, it's by definition not a 9. Opposite. 9s are, can you get a foot in the charge circle? If you don't have a foot in the charge circle, it's not a 9 by definition. Deep floaters, pull-ups, stuff outside the lane, not 9s. You got to get a foot in the charge circle. And I would encourage everyone to tape down a charge circle on their court. And I make it a little bit bigger than the traditional college charge circle. I go just inside the lane line, right up to the second hash mark, just inside the lane line. Just tape an arc there. You got to get 1 foot inside the circle in order for it to be a 9. And that's what our strides help us do. Gosh, really good job keeping it to jail as well. Excellent. I love how they're competing. Kevin does a great job of getting them competing. Good skirmish. Look how he's in position early to plant and sprint and recover back off of it. Really nice job. They're keeping the ball in jail together as well. So this is also a great drill to do just to keep the ball in jail. As soon as you see the ball handler's not going to get in the charge circle or in the smile, as I call it, as soon as you see the ball's not getting to the charge circle, go away. Don't stay there and overhelp. That's a really common mistake of new lock left teams is they keep 2 on the ball way too long, and then they give up off the catch 3s or long closeouts. Go hunt the pass as soon as you see the ball's not getting to the charge circle. Really good hunt of the pass there. I mean, offensively, this is tough. It's tough to get a score out of this. Good switch on that action. Way to keep the ball into jail. Yeah, they're competing. Okay, so that's a 2-on-2 skirmish drill that I would really encourage you to throw into a quarter of your game. If you're saying, hey, we're looking to get better at skirmishing, I might play whatever game you're playing. You're playing 3-on-3, right? With that focus. Then you play that for 8 minutes. Then you're like, all right, let's go skinny style. We're going into this skinny little skirmish 2-on-2 drill. We're doing that for 5 minutes. Let's really get after it. Okay, now let's go back to 3-on-3. And your skirmishing from the gap application is going to be better. How would you introduce it? Problem, solution, benefit. Problem is we're overhelping and giving up off the catch 3. Solution is we got to skirmish and hunt passes sooner as soon as we see the ball's not in the smile. The benefit is you're going to have less long closeouts and it's going to be easier to keep people in jail. So that's a way that you can tie together the problem, solution, benefit with a game sandwich. Game, drill breakdown, back to the game, see improvement, get better at something. I really loved sharing with you today. I appreciate the continued film that you send in. I appreciate the continued questions you send in. And I appreciate the celebrations you're sending in as well. It lets us know that we're serving. I'm Tyler. This is Savvy Coaching. We spend an hour every week with you, our Grow community, exclusively serving you because you're committed to growth. So until next time, stay savvy, and I look forward to next week.